Welcome to the iRat Radio Videocast podcast show here on Thursday. My name's Stuart Lockhead. My guests today are Jimmy Hutton. Hi there, Jimmy.
All right.
And Phil Attridge. Hi there, Phil.
Hi there.
How you doing, guys? Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. We know that Boris is an asshole and actually thinks that Donald Trump was a good candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm pretty sure 95% of Americans woke up this morning knowing that he's no candidate for any kind of peace prize. Last night was entirely avoidable, and we kind of knew it was going to happen because of the rhetoric that's been coming out of Donald's mouth since he lost an election by 7 million votes and claimed that he won in a landslide.
Are you surprised at his behaviour?
No, I think Phil will agree that every psychotherapist I've ever met, every psychologist would tell you that Donald would act in exactly the manner that he has in the last few weeks.
And 73 million Americans agree with him, which is why all these, whatever you want to call them, these creatures with guns and MAGA hats and all the rest of it, all just walked into the Capitol building. Anybody mind Black Lives Matter? It was lined with federal troops that looked like they were straight out of Star Wars. If those people had been black or Native American, they'd have needed a fleet of trucks to take the bodies away. White supremacy is what it's all about. It's what America's always been about. It's a barbarian country. I'm sorry, I was slightly biased. You know, I mean, what's it based on? Genocide, slavery, and then when they've done everybody else in their own country, they've been exporting it all over the world. You know, it's a rogue nation.
What's your prediction for the next 2 weeks, Jimmy, until the inauguration?
I'm not sure, mate. I know that people have talked about invoking the 25th Amendment, and removing him from office, but frankly, his cabinet don't have the courage to do that. It needs to be a majority vote in the cabinet. In fact, I think it needs to be a 2/3 majority vote in the cabinet to do that. And they don't have the courage to do that because they're all policemen. So they may talk about it, but that won't happen. I think it's a certainty that he'll be sidelined by his cabinet and probably even by the political appointees in his own administration, and the ones that don't resign, because some of them will resign to protect their chances of ever having a job in an administration again.
I did hear that there was $250 million of funding for a lot of Republican politicians, that he's been bribing them by saying, look, here's the money for you to get re-elected.
Yeah, but any serving politician, they all need to raise money, mate, but they know fine well, even the ones that will come out and back him, they know fine well that his word can't be trusted. Any money that he has in his coffers at the moment will not be shared out amongst anybody else. It'll be kept for the family.
What about you, Phil? And up until the inauguration day, can you predict what you like? What's going to happen?
I wouldn't mind seeing some Looney Tune trying to kill somebody. You know, I mean, if they can attack the Capitol, you'll get some. You know, somebody will try and do somebody in. And when you talk, I mean, politicians and business in America, particularly since the Friedmanites came about, you know, but they've all Americans, but it's accelerated politics. And
you're talking about Milton Friedman.
Yeah, but that's where it was all cemented down. It's still all, I mean, they all go on about how great Obama was. He was just another neoliberal. And actually, it's racist to say he was a good president just because he wasn't white. Ask all the people he droned everywhere. America's always been that. Business, money, preferably somebody else's money, you know.
Okay, well, Phil, does it worry you? Does it worry you at all that you 73 million you mentioned people voted for it, and it's possible that what happened yesterday was just a dress rehearsal for when he's out of office?
Yeah,
I mean, he's sidelined. Of those 73 million people, you're talking less than 10% would support I know it's a lot, Phil, but even I would say less than 5% would support the actions of those people last night. End of the day, that was an attempted coup. That was attempting to overturn the result of an election. I think there's a fair to middling chance, given that I think Trump's always been handled and that the real power lies not in his hands. I think there's a chance that we'll see an attempted assassination, and an attempt to frame that as an attempted coup by, and might I suggest that it'd be a non-Caucasian left-winger that was the patsy.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be the first time there's been a very complicated assassination in America, would it?
Yeah.
They got away with it the last time, didn't they?
Where's Jack Ruby when you need him? Yeah.
So we seem to have an alignment in this country between COVID deniers and libertarians in this country with Trump supporters. Do you think it's going to make any impact on them?
I do, mate. There's a very worrying use of social media to manipulate people, particularly Twitter, because Twitter, due to its actual operating system, there's never any discussion on Twitter. People just put out their 144 characters or whatever, but it's basically statements, and statements that are designed to antagonize people. But there's the manipulation of people through social media is remarkable. The idea throughout Europe, actually, I mean, we've seen stuff in France, Spain, Germany. You didn't have to manipulate a lot of people. You just have to manipulate a very small percentage of them, and they'll make a lot of noise. And yet, last night, what would you think? Perhaps as many as 10,000, but unlikely. And look at how quickly that news went around the world. In Europe, we're getting this great replacement theory chucked at us, where we're meant to believe that Muslims are going to take over Europe by moving in here and breeding so fast like rats that they'll take over our nation. It's farcical, it's laughable, but people believe it.
But you used to get that as well about the Irish. When the Irish came here in the mid-19th century, they're all breeding this, that. You used to get all the same. Then when the West Indians, then the Jamaicans, Trinidadians, the same thing.
Very similar language that they use, Phil. And as I say, particularly with social media and the reach, it's easy to target because, as I say, folk answer these daft quizzes and what have you on Facebook and that, and you're just handing them information. You're handing them the data they need to manipulate you. They're not going to try and manipulate the likes of you or I because, one, you're not susceptible to it. Two, you question things. But they didn't need to manipulate us. As I say, that's a very small amount of people that have created a news story that everybody in the world will have already seen or heard today. The fact is as well, I'm sorry, but 4 people died yesterday. 4 people died because the man in the Oval Office instigated a riot at the Capitol of the United States. Like you say, Phil, I had a wee look into stuff. The US Capitol Police are actually answerable to the sergeants at arms in the Senate and the House of Representatives. It's a very small police force. There's quite a lot of rumours floating about, as you can imagine now. A rumour being that they asked for a similar level of backup that was used against the Black Lives Matter protests earlier last year, and that backup was refused.
Well,
basically we've seen a few lightly armed guys with fencing trying to hold back a crowd that they just couldn't cope with. Whereas if you'd had the stormtroopers on the steps, it would never have happened.
I did see some footage from behind that the very thin and lightly armed line of Capitol Police behind these just ordinary crush barriers, and they opened them up.
Yeah, they were faced with an impossible.
The police pulled them back. It was as though we'll just let them in because there's not very many of them or something.
Yeah, but I think they were faced with an impossible situation. Phil. At the end of the day, they couldn't draw their arms at that point because you were talking about an armed crowd. There was at least one pipe bomb left inside the Capitol building and a couple outside. This was a pretty difficult situation for police armed with sidearms and that. As
Well,
I say, if you'd had the stormtroopers on the steps that they had at the BLM march, that crowd would have walked away.
well,
They'd have backed down to that.
You've got to rewind right to the start of the planning of that security operation. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here in Leith, thousands of miles away from Washington, and the planning, we knew who was going to turn up. We knew who was encouraging them to, you know. I just can't believe how easy it was for them to get into that building.
Probably
Yeah, sorry, Phil, on you go, mate.
the security forces, the police, and if you have a look how much these security forces and everything have got nothing to do with the state, they're owned by corporations, they're mercenaries. Who do you think a lot of these people's sympathies lie with? You know, you see the way that they just shoot. Well, a 12-year-old wee laddie playing with a toy gun, shooting, nothing happens.
Yeah.
You know, everybody they're black, just shoot them, right? White people, take them for a burger. You know, yeah, it's all white supremacism, and it goes right through. It goes right through the states. It goes right.
Yeah.
There was a bad timing announcement yesterday morning about a policeman was not being charged with shooting somebody in the back 7 times.
Yeah.
And apparently he had a knife, but they couldn't find the knife on him. They found it in his car afterwards. And the guy's not actually dead, but he's paralyzed. That was announced just yesterday morning.
Law enforcement's a difficult thing, but we've seen, I mean, it happens here also. But it's awful in the States. It truly is.
There was at one point watching CNN yesterday, I was fairly shocked to hear that they asked for the National Guard, the National Guard, Washington Metropolitan National Guard, to deploy, and apparently they fall under the federal justice system. So in other words, the Attorney General and who's answerable to Donald Trump, they refused to deploy at first.
Yeah, I think they'll get away with that, mate. The excuse being that the actual District of Columbia National Guard's pretty small, and they were kind of waiting for people from Maryland and Virginia to deploy with them, because they were a bit worried that they would go in there and get their asses kicked. It's weird. I mean, we're looking at people are looking at photos of this boy with a Jamiroquai bonnet on and that, and going, "Oh, isn't that funny? Look, no, it's no. The boy's got 3 chest tattoos of white supremacists on his chest. Each one of those tattoos is a racist symbol, and he's standing there in the Capitol building, flaunting his racism and not being ejected. It's a worry.
Myself, Neanderthal.
I'll be honest with you, mate. I think the US Capitol Police actually probably dealt with it quite well. The woman, the one person so far that's been named as dying, is a veteran. She served 4 terms in the US Army, but the stuff that I've read for her tweets and that, she was absolutely brainwashed with all this nonsense. They believe they're patriots. They believe that the election's been stolen, that their country is being taken from them. It's madness, utter madness, and we're not that far for that. When
I was just going to say that, Jimmy. I mean,
when you see how many people are willing to deny that COVID even exists and that the vaccines. I mean, seriously, there are people out there who believe Bill Gates is capable of putting a microchip in a vaccine to track you. He couldn't make a decent mobile bloody phone. That's how he go to the business altogether.
There was a riot at Speaker's Corner, Hyde Park on Sunday. Anti-vaxxers turned up, and there was footage being shown, and it was by people who were protesting. But I was surprised that I didn't. It wasn't reported on Sunday. It was only last night I saw that.
Our news are trying to keep the whole thing on the down low, mate. There's a strange correlation between all these groups, the kind of people like the Football Lads Alliance and such that turned out for Tommy Robinson and also turned out for Nigel Farage. All these people are connected, and they're all connected because they're susceptible to brainwashing. They're just stupid enough to believe that everything that they get fed on their Facebook feed is true. And it's a self-perpetuating circle because all they see is the same kind of nonsense that they believe.
So do you think Andrew Neil and Piers Morgan will be keeping a low profile, or will they be up still pronouncing as if they're gods?
Piers Morgan's made a very cute right turn away from being Donald Trump's best pal over the last year and a half, mate. He'll probably be all right.
Yeah, you're getting. Yeah, he's almost in some quarters an honorary leftish winger. You know what I mean? Well, he's just looking after his bank balance. I've no doubt. Just wants to get too unimportant. But see this thing in the States. It's the response of this is they profess themselves the world, the leader of the world for democracy and otherwise. And it must be if you're the likes of Merkel and Macron, European heads of state looking, and that what's his name? Guy. He's always Guy something. He's Belgian, I think.
Verhofstadt, Guy Verhofstadt.
But I mean, he's been doing a lot of it. I mean, excoriating and same. All the presses, they're sitting there and looking at it, and that'll bode well. Biden's going to have a tough job to get the Europeans. And I'm sorry, I know you have all risks, but North Atlantic Treaty, you stay right over there in the West. And
mate, Biden added an extra 20% to his support last night when he came out and absolutely excoriated Trump live on TV and demanded that Trump came out and condemned what was going on. That was a very smart move by Joe's handlers to put him on TV before Trump went on telly.
Yeah, no, he was impressive, I must admit.
The only thing, Stuart, is he went on for about 5 minutes when he should have done it in 2 and walked away for the lectern.
Well, he did the first thing. The first thing he said was, "We have to unite because of this." Perhaps somebody was waving to him from behind the camera, saying, "Now get on with the other part of," because you could have said, right, you need to do 2 things. You need to talk about uniting the country, and you need to get Trump. So perhaps somebody waved him to get moving.
I thought it was quite impressive, and the European stuff, Guy Verhofstadt in particular, they're just trying to push Europe into the world leader role that America has held for the last 150 years or so. That's all that Guy Verhofstadt's doing. It was cute, it was clever, but of course they're not going to get there, mate, because frankly, they're 27 rats fighting in a sack instead of 1 or 2 rats fighting in a sack at the top of America.
At the end, that's going to be the Chinese, back where they have been for 18 of the last 20 centuries. The biggest thing, and a lot of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, in terms of if we live that much longer, how's your Mandarin, Phil?
Not an orange, it's the way you speak it.
I know, it's the official language. It's like Castilian. It's in Spain,
What about local news, which apparently, according to the papers, Boris Johnson has attacked the SNP government and said that we wouldn't be having any vaccinations at all, but for the broad shoulders of the UK.
Yeah, startling arrogance. Even from Boris, it's startlingly arrogant to tell the nation that gave the world things like penicillin that our doctors are stupider than English doctors. Our NHS, which is actually better staffed and better performing than the NHS in the rest of the UK, would be absolutely incapable of looking after the Scottish people if it wasn't for the largesse of our down south neighbours, England. It was a ludicrous remark from an idiot politician. The unfortunate thing is that idiot politician's actually in a position of power.
I checked one of the rebuttal services. I think it was actually in the National. They fact checked it, and of course, what we discovered, which we should have known for a long time, it's 100 years since the health service was set up in Scotland, and it's never been, and there is no such thing as a UK National Health Service. You'd have think Boris would know that before he opened his gob.
Yeah, he probably.
1990 was when it became.
You look at the guy, and he's a clown, mate. He's an absolute clown. But who was it? Was it you, Stuart, that I think it was maybe Phil that mentioned Lord Heseltine's comment about Boris's nature. Yeah, he looks to see where the crowd is running and then runs out in front of the crowd and says, "Follow me."
Yeah.
But this is what we're going to get, Stuart. As we said yesterday, we are now the whipping boys for the United Kingdom because they can't point at Johnny Foreigner and blame them for the ills of England any longer. And they have made Ireland and Wales almost irrelevant. So it's everything that goes wrong in England for the next couple of decades is our fault. Hence the reason we should leave them to it and see if they ever manage to look introspectively at their own country and blame themselves for its ills.
Just a moment. Alexa, stop. Okay, these things happen in the modern world, don't they?
Flash.
If only your wives had obeyed you in that manner, sure.
If only. If only. I hear we might have some better, brighter news. You were Jimmy. You flagged up that you believe that Biden's advisor on Europe could be a certain Amanda Sloat, who.
Yeah. It's an interesting viewpoint. It looks like she may very well be the advisor on Europe to President Biden, and she studied in Edinburgh, has a piece of work that she'd done, I think, for a doctoral thesis, maybe, about Scotland and Europe, and she's very much pro-Scottish. So that would be a great appointment for us, given that Mr. Biden considers himself Irish American and the close connection between the Celtic nations. That's only another feather in our cap when we go to America saying, by the way, back us when we want to get rid of these English bombs.
Phil?
Well, you're saying about Biden and his Irish roots. I think it was probably his great grandfather, I should imagine, at least, came over about in the late 1840s because of the famine. So they have, and he still has whole loads of family and that over there. And it's a very powerful lobby, you know. So,
Phil, it'd be interesting to see, given how pro-Irish he always has been, and how the concerns that he mentioned during the campaign about the Good Friday Agreement and that, it would be a massive statement if his first visit abroad was to Ireland, wouldn't it?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, it would be to Ireland. Yeah, that would be absolutely a cracker. Yeah.
And it could, a visit to Ireland could absolutely put a rocket under any unification campaign, particularly if he came out and said that he supported it, or even hinted that he supported it.
And he'd need to do it at Dublin Castle. Because don't forget.
Oh, absolutely, aye. The connotations of Joe Biden standing outside Dublin Castle would be beautiful.
Yeah, be magic. And he could even get him to run up the tricolour.
He could pop over here once he could jump over here for a couple of days once he's been here. We'll give him a free round on Donald's golf course.
Oh, he can't now. I see that because that's why Donald can't come, because no, because he's been banned because of the no traveling and there's no golf.
All right. So did either of you catch the First Minister?
Yes.
This morning.
I didn't see it on Good Morning Britain, mate. I was quite. I was having a lie-in because I sat up watching CNN till about 2 a.m, I'm afraid.
Phil, did you see her?
No.
No, she was very impressive, and they didn't give her a hard time. I didn't realise that Good Morning Britain run their programme right across the hour. I was expecting them to finish at 8 o'clock and have the news, but they actually started interviewing the First Minister before 8 o'clock, and then she carried on a bit after.
Good for them. It's nice when she gets a nice wee bit of coverage in the entire UK, because it makes Boris look incredibly ridiculous when it's.
She certainly did, and also she's upset. Well, they've upset the unionists because the First Minister was described as a world leader that had commented on the situation in America. So that's.
Dear, I can imagine there'd be certain unionist Twitter accounts with steam coming out of their ears about that one.
Can you hear George Fuchs making a complaint? Can you hear Lord Fuchs making a complaint?
Go, don't get
He
stuck.
only usually makes a complaint when he's sober, mate, and I don't think he's been sober for about 3 weeks because he's gone gay quiet.
Well, look, guys, this has been a kind of filler show today, and I'm really glad you managed to both come on. The gaffer hopefully will be back in good form tomorrow.
Splendid.
Thanks very much, Jimmy Hutton, and thank you very much, Phil Attridge. My name's Stuart Lockhead. If I can get my mouse to work, we'll say goodbye. Cheerio.